Hey guys, and welcome to our first episode of Grief and Giggles. Really though? But okay. In this episode, we're gonna ask each other intimate questions about our grieving process. I'm Nicole Summers. This is Latasha Summers. I know I should have did that first, but hey, it's fine. But like I said, we're gonna ask each other intimate questions about our grieving process. This journey has not been easy for us, but there have been some funny moments on this journey. So we want this podcast to be a blessing to not just us, but to other people that have experienced loss as well. And we also want to talk about the funny parts of grief and the happy moments of grief, because we know that grief isn't black and white. So we just want you guys to enjoy. Let us know your thoughts, and
thanks for joining us again.
Yes, so you can start first, being that you're the oldest.
You see, you always do that with the
Age
oldest,
before beauty,
whatever. So again, we are prepared these questions for one another. No one knew in advance what these questions were, but we'll find that some of them are very similar. So it's been 2 years since Dad passed.
2 years since our dad passed,
And
5 years.
for Mommy.
Yeah, for my mom.
So from the time Mom passed in 2017 until now in 2022, in what ways are you different compared to before?
I think that I am more reserved than I was before. I mean, I know I was reserved before because I'm an introvert, but I think I have become more reserved. I have become more reserved. And I've also have been more selective about who I let in my close circle of friends and family. I appreciate, my close circle. These are people that I talk to quite often. I think since Mom's passing, I've just been more selective about who
I did read something somewhere, and it said, you're more intentional about who gets to share your space, right? So you put more thought into like who's around you, who's in your circle, who really has your back, who's really supporting you, or whatever, and you can be more selective when it comes to that, because you don't want to have like a whole bunch of people in your space. A lot of times people don't understand what you're going to do, and even if they don't, if they're a good friend and supportive and they're there for you, you know what I mean, you still want them to be around. I know you are an introvert, so you've already been selective already as it is, but again, being more intentional about, okay, well, why is this person in my circle? Is this necessary for me in this moment? And again, like as we going through, especially your initial part of dealing with grief and experiencing loss, and and the way like Mommy passed quickly, it wasn't like she was ill or sick or whatever. So it definitely was just like it was sudden, and just going from one extreme of life to the next, so quickly. So,
Okay. What about for you? Like, what do you think has changed for you since Mom's passing 5 years ago?
So I think it's interesting how you like, oh, you're the oldest, whatever. So we're gonna like do, like how we have like our roles or whatever. So like as Mom's oldest, just taking leadership roles and having to do things, and taking charge in spaces where Mommy would, do things, whatever, or trying to, help Dad, along the way and take care of things for Dad, I think in that space with Mom, it was like, even when she was here, like I was the doer. I was the one that did everything. She asked me to do it. I did, we did it, and so I think when Mom passed, for me, my mourning process was a little bit later, because I was in the action of doing and making sure everything was good and taken care of and things that needed to be put in place or whatever. And so I didn't really get into like the mourning grief process until like after, when everything like the dust settled and it was like now we had to start life anew without Mom, and moving back home and making that adjustment. So I think that definitely changed me, because there were a lot of times when I just wanted to stick my head in the sand. I didn't want to be the leader or had to be the oldest and do things. You know, I wanted to, and I'm not taking anything away from you. I mean, you definitely, you know, played your part in your role as well. But, you know, you just kind of go into your role, especially as women. We just go into the role that we've been taught to do our whole entire lives. So that definitely has changed me. And just knowing that things have to get done, and I can't, like, you know, play around with it, and taking care of and making sure that even in their loss and their death, that I'm still advocating for them. You know what I'm saying? And people try to take advantage or try to, you know, run scams and things like that. Like, you really, it's just so crazy how people try to take advantage of you, even in loss. So definitely trying to be on point when it came to that. And so that definitely changed me. And like I said, my mourning process was a lot later. But I think after, I was able to actually sit back and look in retrospect and think, okay, I did what mommy wanted me to have done, and dad as well. So, you know, so yeah, that was that.
Well, how do you feel like you changed since dad passed? That's a little bit more recent, so.
It was more recent, and dad wasn't sudden, but dad definitely, like, he changed from what I knew him to be like my whole entire life, and in the last like month, it was like a completely different person. So that part was different because there was no way to prepare. There was no way to know like this was going to happen, and I think that like if anybody would have told me like that would have been the way like dad would have passed, I would be like, that's crazy. Like, you know, dad was healthy, he worked out, he walked, he took his vitamins, like he was a picture of perfect health. And so it was like, I don't know, it was difficult to be a caregiver, especially be the advocate for dad during COVID, because dad didn't have COVID ever.
Yeah.
You know, and so just to advocate for him and not being able to like go in the hospital or whatever. Shout out to one of our friends, I'm not going to say her name or what hospital, but she works as a medical professional, and during COVID, she was like, no, we're going up in the hospital, but you need to lay eyes on your father. And we surely did. And they were looking at us like, who are these people? I'm Latasha Summers, and this is my daddy. And that's, you know, that's how it was. So I needed to advocate for him because he couldn't for himself. And so that definitely changed, because it's like, how many other people have experienced that or gone through that with their family? Or, you know, how many people have children or family members who don't even advocate for them at all? They'll just ship them off to a hospital or wherever, a facility, and then, that's you know, nobody cares. You know what I mean? Like, people still deserve some quality of care. You know what I mean? And so, obviously you've never experienced a pandemic before, you know, to that level, but it was just like, this person still needs to be taken care of just as much as anyone else. Yeah. And of course, you know, you're going to think it's your father, so you want them to give, you know, best care as, you know, as possible. So that definitely changed me as far as like just, I would say, as an individual, having like your like healthcare proxy in order, you know, having your emergency contact in order. It doesn't have to be a family member, it could be like your close friend, but and then also letting that person know that they are emergency contact. Like, don't throw them through the loop. But then also knowing what you want as well, as far as emergencies, God forbid something would happen to you. So just learning that whole process about caregiving definitely changed me, and it's softened my heart towards you know, people who are in the hospital.
I think for me, I think like even now, like with dad's passing, I think what I deal with and how it kind of changed me is I noticed that I deal with guilt a lot more because of, I think for me, not recognizing those signs early on that he was kind of like declining. But I know a lot of people tell me like, well, you weren't a medical professional, so even if you were a medical professional, like it's something that you probably would have missed because that's your family. You know, you're not on the clock. You just, you know.
But I do think in retrospect, like we all look back and be like, okay, what could I have done differently? You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, we could have, you know, but I think that because of that, I think it has changed me, and I deal with a lot of like guilt.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah.
And I also have a really soft spot for older men over the age of like 60 because it kind of reminds me of like of dad or whatever. So I instantly like have a soft spot for senior men, you know, and not to say, you know, I'm trying to get a sugar daddy or nothing like that, but
nobody was going there. Nobody was even thinking about
just to clear that up for anybody that had any thoughts. But you know, just you know, I just really have a soft spot for them. I also you know, try to talk to a lot of like friends that still have their parents, like, and even if they have a hard relationship with their parents, or not even hard, but just, you know, kind of a weird relationship, or even if they do have a good relationship with their parents, I always try to tell my friends, you know, if something's going on with your parents, you know, talk with them.
Right.
You know, be there for them, check in on them. You know, I know encourage them, and I know sometimes parents can get on our nerves.
Yes.
But shout out to Nicole in the background.
But who gonna love you more than that? You know
right.
What I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
they can get on your nerves, but you still going. Right.
Exactly.
They'll get
mommy had me do a task for her while she was in the hospital, like the night before she died. She was like, yeah, tomorrow I need you to go to the church. And I'm like, bruh, like, you were in the hospital. Like, what are you talking about?
Oh, God.
So, you know, yes, but, you know, who else would you do it for? You know what I mean? So, and they did it for us.
Yeah.
You know, so
did.
It's like.
They did.
Yeah.
What are some funny moments that you, that made you laugh during your grieving process?
So there are two that stick out, and so one of them includes you. So, okay. So so like everyone knows, like you're an introvert or whatever, right? So I remember when mommy passed, and like there was so many people at the house, and I'm the extrovert, Nicole's the introvert, whatever. So we're literally sitting in the kitchen, and Nicole is standing next to me, as close as we are sitting right now. She sends me a text message and says, there are too many people in this house. I'm overwhelmed. And I literally looked at my phone, and I looked over at her like, did you just text me?
I mean, just for clarity, we go to a huge church. We go to a huge church, so, you know, our parents are very active in the church. So when mom passed, like, it seemed like the whole church was in the house. like it was just too many people for me. I was overwhelmed. It was too much for an introvert. So yeah.
And I think too, like when you are dealing with mourning, when people, they have good intentions because people want to come over, they want to get food, they want to show their support, whatever. But although you're mourning, essentially you're hosting these people in your house. You're hosting people. You know, you're there's food and there's drink, and then you want to talk, and
it's funny that
they want to sit with you. You know, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's all great intention. It really is. But it can be sometimes overwhelming when you are trying to have moments of privacy. You know, like,
but even like with dad's an extrovert introvert. So like when all those people were in the house, like dad would be there 1 minute, and then the next minute he'd be gone like Batman, like nowhere.
Where'd dad go? He'd be like, Tasha, Nikki got it, like where? Like where'd you go?
Gone, like upstairs, like.
Yeah. And then there was another time when maybe this was like a day. This was actually the day of mom's service, so we everybody came back to the house essentially. So the repast was like at our house. Retrospect, we should have had it at the church because it was mad people.
We did have it at the church.
But then we had like the after. It was like the after
party is the after party.
I was like,
yeah, we had the after party.
And we had mad food. It was so much food. So my Nana,
because both refrigerators were packed to capacity.
Jam-packed. Like we had no room to even put this food in anymore. Like people just had to eat at this point. So a couple houses down on our block, there was like a fire. I don't know if it was a fire, but there was like fire trucks right outside. So it was like summertime. It was hot. So Nana's sitting on the porch. So she sees all this happening. Of course, she's from West Virginia, down south. So they sit on the porch like it's nothing. So she was like, girls, because all our friends were over, girls, y'all better pack these plates and get these men some plates, honey, because they single and they got pensions. And sure enough, we was over there loading up food, ribs and macaroni and cheese, collard greens. And they were looking at us like,
where did y'all come from?
And why? But it was so funny because she was serious. So that always sticks out in my head because that was funny. It was really like, who would have thought, like, the same time this is all happening, there's a fire occurrence like down the street, and they looking at us like, where all this food come from? We're like, it's catered, trust, like, it's okay, like, y'all can eat. And we actually ended up getting a thank you card from the firefighters.
Ironically, one of the firefighters was our neighbor across the street.
Yes.
So that was pretty funny. I think for me, one of the funniest moments was, I can't remember who was at the door, but even after the funeral of our mom, people were still like, coming by, ringing the doorbell or whatever. And I think one day you had your wig off. Because at this point, she wasn't doing her hair at all.
Gotta keep my pants down.
Lord. Anyway, so she was wearing a wig. She didn't have it on. She only
It was
had
a
her
new wig. I had tags on it. I was not ready.
She still had her little scully, whatever that little thing is you wear underneath the wig, on. She's chilling in the bed. The doorbell rang. I don't know why I didn't answer the door, but I did. So she got up, threw her wig on to answer the door, and then whoever she was talking to, they talked for a little bit, and then she closed the door. And then I looked at her and I was like, something don't look right. I'm like, yo, your wig is on back. So this one starts singing, hat to the back, gotta keep my pants down, and I was like, yo, whatever. Like, you was like, my mother just died. I'm not thinking about my wig being on.
I truly was not.
Oh my God.
Lucky I got up and actually answered this door, honey, okay?
Oh Lord.
Thanks.
But yeah, there are, I know that like grief is not always an easy thing, but there are funny moments within that process.
And grief is different even among siblings in the same household. Like, we have different experiences, we have and share different memories. We have good days, bad days. I may be having a good day. You may not be having a good day on the same day. So we could be triggered by something that we smell or we see or we hear, and then it's like, kind of sends us in like a tailspin.
Well, that's a good segue into your question that you have here. Yes, I'm looking at your question.
Okay. In what ways have I been supportive to you, sister?
That's a good question. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, just looked at it.
I mean, you've always been supportive of me. I think, like you said, we grieve differently. I know that you're more emotional. Like, you don't have any problems, showing your emotions and how you're feeling or whatever. Whereas me, I'm like, I'm just gonna go in this corner over here in silence and just pout for a little bit, and then get it together and then come out or whatever.
Yeah, that worries me. I don't like when you do that, but
well, yeah.
So that's your process.
That's my process, right? But I know, like, if I have one of those moments, or if I'm like really, really, really quiet, she's always asking me questions like, "Are you okay? Are you all right? What's going on? Why are you feeling like that? Let's talk about your feelings." And I'm like, I don't want to talk about feelings right now. Like,
she's so rude.
Whereas Tasha, like, she'll bust out in tears, and I'm just like, okay, so
that was me last night. I definitely had a moment last night, and I just needed to, like, I was on the verge of tears, and I was like, I gotta get the tea. I just have to get it out. and then I'll feel better. But like it was there, you know what I mean? Like I just was overwhelmed. So, you know, Nicole knocks, it's like an obligatory knock on the door, but really she's not knocking for approval to come into the room. She's just knocking to let you know, like, yo, I'm outside, but I'm coming in, right? So of course she busts in. I'm boohoo crying, wailing, and she's like, "Oh, you." She was like, "What? Oh!" And then she just like closed the door. I was like, "I just need a couple minutes, Nicole. Just give me a moment." Nicole was not, you know. And I remember, like after Mom passed, I don't know. I think this is after we had moved back home, and I was just exhausted because I think like we couldn't go into the storage place like that day. We had to wait like another day, and it was like early. It was like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. I just went to bed, and Danny was like, "Where's Tasha?" And I was like in the bed. I didn't say anything. This is how I know, y'all know, like I was not, like I checked out. And Dad came upstairs. He was in the door. I remember he was just looking at me and he was just like, "We're going to do it tomorrow. It's going to be okay." And you just didn't say nothing. You just sat there and you just rubbed my back and you just let me cry. He was like, "Just cry. Like, I'm just here." You just sat there like, yeah. You just rubbed my back and just let me, I mean, I think I cried for like a good, so probably I couldn't even produce any more tear ducts at that point. It probably was like a good half an hour, 45 minutes. I was just crying. And you just sat there and just like rubbed my back and didn't say a word. And that was it. Like sometimes you just need that too. You know what I mean? And that's enough.
Yeah.
You know? So
I think like even with this question that you're asking, like, you know, I have a close circle of friends and family. You know, they're always, so I know when they ask like, "Oh, how are you doing?" I know it's not a regular "How are you doing?" It's more so like, "Nah, like, how are you doing?" Right? So I think I'm just now getting to that place where I can like express like, "Oh, this is how I'm feeling today," or you know, "This is what I was dealing with." Like, you know, like I'm learning just how to process my feelings more and be more verbal about it, because I usually hold stuff in.
Yeah, and it's good. I mean, because people don't know, and if people already know that you're an introvert, it's like they don't know like she's the same person, you know, the same way she's acting. Like I remember, like my best friend, you know, she was like, "I don't know," because she's like, "I don't know how you feel." You know what I'm saying? Both my parents are here, but I'm your best friend. I've known you since you were 11. Whatever you need, you know what I'm saying? I'm here. Like even if you want to like sit on the couch or cry, if you want to go out to eat, if you want to just like sit in silence and I'll hold your hand, like whatever you need, I'm going to be there, you know what I'm saying, for you. So I was like, the fact that she preambled that and said that, I was just like, I can trust her with, you know, how I'm feeling and tell her and she'll get it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like you know, people are like, "Oh, I know how you feel." Like, no, probably don't. You know what I mean? So she wasn't trying to lead with that. It was like, "I don't know how you feel, but I got your back." You know what I'm saying? So I think people need to do more of that in all relationships. You know what I'm saying? It's not a war against whose grief is better. Like that's not how any of this works. You know what I mean? Like
it's funny that you said that because I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I told him that, you know, I'm learning how to be sympathetic to all types of loss, right? And in my mind, I think that like, "Oh, I lost my parents. What can be worse than that?" You know what I'm saying? Like, so if somebody's like, "Oh," and I just thought of a funny story. So if somebody's like, "Oh, you know, my aunt died or my grandfather died," you know, part of me is like, "But how hurt are you?" You know? And it's like, Nicole, come on now. Like, loss is loss, you know what I'm saying? So I'm learning to not be like that,
and not try to equate your loss
and not
to
equate to my loss to their loss, right? And I think that stemmed from me running into a friend on the subway one time. And I hadn't seen her in a while, and she was like, "Hey, you know, how you doing? How have you been feeling or whatever?" You know, and I was just like, "Oh, you know, I just kind of, you know, been dealing, you know, with the loss of my mom or whatever." And she was like, "Yeah, you know, I know how it is because I lost my dog or whatever." And in that moment, bitch, I was like, sorry. Like, y'all, I was staying with her dog.
Did you
so
compare a canine to my mom?
Exactly.
You got to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, you was like this, right? Like, excuse me, what?
So I was just like, yeah, no. Right. I mean, I get it, you know, people have pets that support dogs, but I was just kind of like, that probably wasn't the proper time for you to compare your dog with my mom, but okay, you know, so I think that's where it kind of stemmed from, where I was just kind of like, well, who did you lose?
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. I think she was trying to find common ground, but it was still like, it was tone deaf for sure.
It was tone deaf,
Yeah.
but I, you know, in that moment I was just kind of like, yeah, in that moment I was just kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't hold it against her or whatever, but you know.
But did you continue to talk to her? Is the
I
question.
did. Cause we was on the train. Like, what was I gonna do?
Oh my God.
We were on the train. I could have got off the next stop, like deuces,
Out,
but yeah. But it just, I think from that it kind of made me like, you know, look at, you know, everybody's experience differently,
Right.
but with a judgy eye. But I have been diligently correcting myself with that, because you know, some people probably were raised by their grandmother, some people were probably raised by their uncle, or they just really had a close relationship with certain people,
Right.
and you know, I just know I gotta.
I mean, that's a great way of looking at it, because everybody didn't have that upbringing or that you know, background, whatever. So it's like, you have to
be open to other people's experience.
right. And if it's something that's hurting them, it hurts them. If they saying it, you know, they vocalizing it. But again, like to compare a canine to your mom is like,
So
She probably kicking herself. Like she probably went home and thought.
like,
about
did
it.
I say that?
She probably
She gonna see
did.
this podcast and be like, dang, she's talking about me.
I still love you though.
Got to be more careful.
Oh
right?
Lord, but nah, it's cool. You know, she was trying to relate, so I get it. I got a little lipstick on my teeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to be discreet about
It's
it.
alright. It's
He's still cute.
What's your?
All right. So my next question. In what ways do you honor mommy and daddy?
This podcast.
Great answer.
This podcast. When I wear purple, you know, that's honoring mommy. Or if I'm wearing red, that's honoring dad. But mainly this podcast and just doing the work that they did. Like mom and dad were givers. They always, even if they didn't have a lot, they always helped other people. So I try to keep that mindset. Like even if I don't have a lot right now, I try to give back to other people. So just continuing that legacy of giving back.
Agreed. Mom and daddy did much with little, you know, and they weren't rich. We weren't raised rich, although we never really had to put much thought to anything. I mean, but again, being naive and being kids, we didn't know. But you know, they did a lot with little, and their impact, influence was definitely important. And I think that actually did bring a lot of joy to me to see, like, yo, like a lot of people, like mom and dad, like really like impacted a lot of people outside of just us. You know what I mean? And mom always used to say, like, there are other people that influence you. It's not just your mom and dad, like, you know, growing up or whatever. So I think it was great that their legacy withstood, you know, their lives, and people were just like, yo, I love you, mom. Like, I love you, dad. You know what I mean? Even now. And just the impact, you know, like, mommy service. I mean, I remember one of my friends from my job, and he was like, I have never been to a service like that before, ever. He was like, yo, that was like worship service. He was like, it's a funeral. He was like, that was the best funeral I've ever been to. And I was like, okay, we'll go with that. And then unfortunately, you know, dad passed during the pandemic, but, you know, having a drive-by, and it was like literally, you know, we had to have a marshal.
Shout out to
Mark to lead the processional. And it was like, I mean, just blocks and blocks of cars just wanting to just drive by, be able to just experience something, you know, to be with dad. And then the school that my dad worked at actually naming a hallway after him and did a whole like unveiling, you know. It was just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, it was just something that was impactful. And even now I get like emotional about it. It was like, you know, and not to, you know, say anything, like my dad worked as a janitor, but he knew everybody from the superintendent all the way down, the teachers, the students, you know, and it was like, I was like, wow, like the impact was like huge, you know what I mean? And so like, you could do much with what you have, you know what I mean? And so that just like that legacy, I just hope that we continue that as well.
Yeah.
Eyeballs.
He said, oh, and
And
mommy's
eyeballs.
eyeballs. Apparently, I have inherited the eyeball look.
The eyeballs is when you know you about to get red. We're not wearing our glasses today, but you know,
not today.
the edge of your nose
Glasses.
is about to be a gather.
Yeah. What part of you, as a person, reminds you of mom and dad?
So that was actually one of the questions I had for you. As an adult, what are some personality traits that you have adopted from mommy and daddy? So like that's funny. So for mom, I would say always making sure that you like look good when you walking out the house. You know, even if like, you know, you going to the store to run errands or whatever, still look presentable. You know what I mean? You know, I may get some kickback from this, but like never leaving the house like with a bonnet or a scarf on your head. That was just not acceptable. She was not having that. Always making sure as far as like being professional, buying, you know, suits and pieces that you can keep in your closet that will withstand time. So if you ever have a, you know, an interview or, you know, you're a part of an organization, you have something already in the closet that you could wear and put on and look professional and presentable. For dad, I would definitely say, you know, just taking care of and checking in on family, being more like intentional of like keeping that relationship with family members. Dad was very neighborly, so it was very much about checking in on one another, because you never know when you need somebody to like check in on you, make sure that you're good, you know? So dad was always like that. I definitely thinking about him when I have issues with my car and, you know, because I didn't have to think about it. Dad would do it. You know what I mean? Dad would fuss like, oh, your car's on E, but he would go to the gas station first and fill it up and then come back and fuss that my car was on E. You know, and just, you know, checking the oil, just doing things that, you know, men, and as a father did, which, you know, it gave me, I guess, high expectations for a mate and what they should do as far as taking care of their wife, and, you know, their daughters. So I definitely would say that.
I think for me, so mom always dressed in her corporate suits for work.
Yes.
She's done that for years. So for me, I'm always going to work dressed. And actually there was one day last week where I didn't feel like dressing up. So I just wore the company hoodie.
Oh, you was really dressed up. Was it Friday?
No, it wasn't a Friday.
And the day it was raining?
Yeah, it was the day it was raining, and I had on so I had on the company hoodie and black MC Hammer pants with some black combat boots. So one of the doctors that I'm close with, I walked in, he was like,
Everybody okay?
he was like, you okay? He was like, I'm not used to seeing you dressed like this. So in that moment, I realized like, oh, I'm like my mom. Like I come to work dressed,
Right.
You know. And I think with dad, I would say, even though like I'm going through something, I'm always smiling. Like dad always was smiling, regardless of what he was dealing with.
Right.
He always had a smile on his face. So I think I'm the same way.
I thought about that the other day too. I was like, life be life, but I still make sure my face is pretty and smile and have lipstick on. So, so yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm next.
Yeah, you.
Okay.
All right.
What is your favorite childhood memory?
Childhood memory. I think my favorite childhood memory is what we talked about on the way here, which is that mom and dad were very active parents. Like, you know, you saw them all the time. You saw them at school, you saw them at our dance school, you saw them at Girl Scouts.
Right.
Everything that we did, you saw their face. Like they were very active parents. They didn't like drop us off and then like leave and then
And
come
even
back.
as adults, to piggyback, even as adults, whatever we were a part of, as far as our organizations or whatever,
They
would
were a
support
part
us.
of it.
Yeah, they would be like I'm like, but I'm an adult. They're like, yeah, it's okay, but I'm gonna buy a ticket, or if you need this support here, I got you, whatever. Like, mom and dad would always make sure that we were good,
Yeah.
So, that definitely is, I guess, like just throughout, as far as like a childhood memories, just having that. And you don't realize it, you would think like, oh God, my parents are overbearing, like they're always in everything, but like as an adult, it was like, it was necessary.
Yeah, it is necessary. It is necessary. What would you say is one of your fondest memories? Because you were trying to piggyback off of mine. You need
Sorry.
your own.
You tried it. I wasn't.
You need your own.
Wow, I have a lot of child memories. I mean, I don't know, I guess like going down south to see our other family and having mommy and daddy like share like their childhood experiences, how they grew up, how they were raised, to kind of see them in their element like with their siblings, like that childhood memory is funny because like I'm like, okay, they act like us with their adults. I mean, there's so many, I can't specifically pick just one. But yeah, there's so many to choose from. Traveling a lot, I would say, dad barbecuing, going to amusement parks and taking like our friends with us, amusement parks. And, let's see, what else have we done? That was fun. I'm trying to think of what else.
Put you on the spot, huh?
You did. I mean, because there's so many. We be here all day.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we be here all day talking about like, great childhood memories. But just, I read something yesterday. It said something like, tears dry up, smiles fade, but memories last forever. And we're back.
You know what? I think one of the questions I have for you is, during your grieving process, when did you know that you were going to be okay?
Okay, that's a good question. I think I need a moment to think about that, because there are some moments where I'm not sure that I still am okay. Like I have better days than I do not, that I don't, but I think God just sends you like gentle reminders, and like nobody else in the room would know, like with you, like different signs and signals or whatever. I think that is the beautiful thing about having a relationship. Like, okay, like that makes sense. Like they're talking to me from heaven, and so they hear me, they see me. I think about mommy and like her prayers and dad, his prayers for us, whatever. Like they still resound, they still cover us. I think any like major decisions that I make, I always consider their opinion. Like what would they think? Like if I were to talk to them about something, although I know like what I'm going to do, I already have like the answer in the back of my mind, I still feel like, okay, well, what would they say? Well, what advice would they give me? And so that's how I know, and sometimes that I am on the right track. But again, I do have those bad days where I think I pray and I'm intentional about like, just like God, just show me, or like show me what I need to see. You know what I mean? Like again, it'll be like signs that nobody else can see or know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you're like, okay. Like I remember after mommy passed, and we were still kind of back and forth between, our old apartment and going back home, and at this point, everybody had like left except for like my cousin and my aunt, and so they were the last ones to leave to go back home. So my baby cousin, he was with us, and so I was driving him back to the family house. So we were on the highway, and right before we left, I was sitting in the living room, and I just like, his father had already passed, which is my mom's brother. So he got it. So it was another situation where like I just needed a moment to cry. And he just sat there and held me and just let me cry. And sorry.
time to eat. Why you crying?
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Just a second. Stop trying to make me laugh, girl. Anyway, so anyway, we got in the car and we go back to the family house, and we were at the stoplight, and this huge monarch butterfly flew over the car. And I was like, "Did you see that?" And he was like, "See what?" And I'm like, "Butterfly." He was like, "No, that was for you."
Yeah.
I mean, that's a simple example, but I mean, those instances such as that make you just kind of come back to a space where, like, okay, I'm not by myself. Like, they hear me, they feel me, and so that gives me comfort.
Yeah. I think.
See, I was trying not to cry this whole time podcast, so it was good.
I was just joking with you.
Whatever.
Anyway, you see, she's the more emotional than I am. No, I'm just kidding. But I support you.
Whatever.
I support your feelings.
Support this.
Support this. Whatever. Anyway, a moment when I knew that I was gonna be okay. I remember the day Dad passed. I can't remember if it rained for a little bit, but I remember looking up in the sky and seeing this huge rainbow. So those that know the word know that, like, you know, the rainbow means God's promise, right? So for me, when I saw that rainbow, I was just like, okay, God is telling me that, you know, as a family, we're gonna be okay, right? So it's always interesting that I saw that rainbow, because I had a dream that it was this huge rainbow kite. This guy, well, Dad was flying the kite. It was Dad flying the kite. It was a huge rainbow kite, and it was going all the way to the sky. And I just remember it like coming all the way down, and Dad was holding the end of the rainbow and was, you know, holding it. And he was like, "Do you want to fly it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I grabbed it from him and I started flying the rainbow kite. That's all I can remember from the dream, but that dream reminded me of that day that I saw that rainbow after Dad passed. And then there was another moment where I was driving home from work, and one of Dad's favorite songs came on, which is Forevermore. Sorry, I forgot the name of the group, but anyway, it's an R&B song. And it came on the radio, and I was like, oh, you know, one day when I get married, I'll probably dance to that song, you know, in honor of Dad or whatever. And then I looked up after having that thought, and there was a rainbow in the sky. So I think the rainbow for me symbolizes that, you know, our family is gonna be okay. That's God's promise that we are gonna be okay.
That made me think about the dream I had, like when I finally had a dream about Mom. Like, Mom was wearing purple, and she was in this room when there was other people around. Like, I distinctly just remember seeing her, and like the back wall, like it was just bright. It was like white bright. And I was so excited to see her. Like, I wanted to get you and Daddy, right? So I'm in my subconscious, like I'm asleep, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I want to tell Nikki and Dad, like Mom is here. And then like I woke up and I was mad. I was like, oh, really? Like, you know? So I had to kind of laugh at myself after, like, you really was trying to get them like in your sleep. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but it was like, all right, like I see you, you know, I'm with you. So yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask this last question. And I think it's a question that a lot of our guests probably need to ask themselves as well. And the question is, who are you now post-loss?
Who am I post-loss? I think it kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier about like relationships and intentionality as far as like having relationships and fostering those relationships that are important. I think that taking care of yourself, you shouldn't feel guilty about it. I think life is short and fleeting, and so if you have an opportunity to create great memories, do that. I remember Mom gave us the book to the lyrics of
I Hope
Bonnie Riott's I Hope You Dance, and I still have that book on my dresser. And so I think about the lyrics to the song. It's like, don't you know, play second fiddle, like, you know, if you have an opportunity to dance, enjoy life. Who cares who's watching, you know, just, and so I think, like I am an extrovert, but I could be introverted in some spaces where I'm not really sure how people perceive me. And so, I think I'm more, I'm more intentional about just being me and actually like loving me, like being intentional and loving me. Like I have to, you know, you don't have your mom and dad to say, hey, you was smart, you was kind, you was important. You have to like do that for yourself. So like when you have, you know, those moments, I think I'm just more intentional about just being loving and loving on myself more, and being able to share those experiences with people, and just making memories and living my life to the fullest.
Okay. I think for me, who am I post-loss? I'm realizing post-loss is a rebirth season for me. So I think that right now I'm trying to figure out who that person is post-loss. Because, you know, after you lose 2 anchors, you kind of have to make the adjustments for yourself. You have to make decisions for yourself without the cheerleaders. And you got to encourage yourself. So I think with me being in the rebirth season, I think I am still trying to figure out who I am post-loss. So that's an ongoing journey
Process.
Agreed. For me. So I know it's the same for many of you that are watching this. So we hope that this podcast will help you to shed light on who you are post-loss and some of the happy and funny moments during this journey. Did you have anything that you wanted?
I just wanted to say thank you, sister, for this amazing episode and these questions.
Thank you, sister.
I think we actually got an opportunity to delve into how we really feel, and it was good to know how one another feels and actually thinks. We're grateful for, again, this audience to come and be a part of this journey with us. So again, thank you for joining us at Grief and Giggles.
And thank you to our favorite photographer ever, Nicole Mondale, for allowing us to use her studio. We love you, Nicole. And we love you guys too for tuning in and supporting us. We look forward to sharing more episodes with you guys.
Until next time,
peace and blessings.